Dante has had a few days to properly settle in now at captain's rank, and it's time to look at some new concepts, including the different types of planets. Sand Sterling, as we previously noted, is frozen. New Caroline's an example of Earth type. Centronome is desert. Those are the three types we currently have in our control. And if we look at Achilles and the building list that's available here, Colony Hub is grayed out. If we look at the bottom, it's going to show a yellow warning. We try to build something that we can't build. Only one Colony Hub per planet. If we try that with a fusion plant, can't build on this type of planet. Same with the park. So that's worth noting, because if we switch now, we're going to want to build on Naxos. If we look at our list, Colony Hub is still there, but we can't build water vaporators here. That's going to come up much later in the game. But we can build the fusion plant or the park, and the park is what we want. This is our next step up in terms of morale buildings. The bar, 6,300, and the recreational center at 7,500 are the most expensive we built so far. This is 14,000, actually just slightly bigger than the hospital. It says they provide a physical reminder of the colonist's homeworld, pleasant, relaxing oases. Should be oases, but that's probably just a translation issue. A faux nature raise colony moral, i.e. morale. So it's interesting that the walkthrough suggests that Earth-like planets get a natural boost to their morale. I don't think they actually do. If they do, it's very small. But what you can do is you can build the park on them and not on the other planets. So that's how that sort of works. It's weird that you actually have to build a park on an Earth-like planet, in my opinion, because it's a reminder of their homeworld. Well, if it's Earth-like, why does it need to be a reminder of their homeworld? I think it would be a lot more interesting if they'd made it so that Earth-like planets automatically got the effects of a park without having to build it. And other than the cost, not much energy or workers, but you can see the footprint there if we go back. These are big. They're almost as big as a colony hub. They're one of the larger structures you can build. So it's the space they require that's really one of the main costs. Now, after we get this up, we will be able to boost effectively up to demanding here. And this only goes up to oppressive, one more. So we're nearing the top of the tax scale. But we can't do that quite yet. These do take just over a day to build. And so we're getting about 17,000 credits in a day, gradually increasing, and at the cost of 14k, it's less than a day's income, so that's not too bad. Then, of course, we'll want to throw one up on New Caroline after we get another day's income in. On the 29th, we have started the park in New Caroline. We're saving up some money gradually. And then on Naxos, the park is in process, but it still has some more to go.
Dr. Catherine Reinhardt awaits you on the bridge.
Now, this is not avoidable. If you just wait it out, anytime you want to go to the bridge, advance time while you're there, read any messages, anything, you'll get trigger the encounter. So we need to go and see what the doctor has for us.
I'm glad I found you here, because I need you to fill out this test.
So time stops while you're doing this. And this is a basic personality test, which is very strange, because you're a captain. So why would you be given... Why would they not know this about you ahead of time? They haven't gone through all this screening before? This is very weird. But if you try to just, do the okay here without actually filling it out, that doesn't work. So let's go through these questions. Lack self-confidence when it comes to relationships. Do these feelings describe your inner emotions? And I'm sort of going with a realistic middle-of-the-road approach here. Occasionally lack confidence. If I need to make spur-of-the-moment decisions, my responses are often... Well, spur-of-the-moment could be quick decisions affected by pressure. Minor problematic issues. Are you still optimistic? Sometimes. Nobody feels optimistic all the time. Do I ever let my emotions get the better of me? Sometimes. An inspiring piece of poetry is more important than the powerful weapon. Ah yes, the pen is mightier than the sword. Let's all cliche this together. But, yeah, it depends on the mood. I'm strong enough to face my fears. Sometimes. When I get the blame for situations beyond my control, I feel concerned. And then, because rationality does not always get the desired response, you may have to resort to extreme measures. And some of these responses are kind of extreme, like up here it says mass destruction is the biggest thrill of all. Here, we'll just say only in extenuating circumstances. We'll only use force when we have to.
Thank you, sir.
And now we may proceed as normal. However, if you answer the test a little bit differently, the situation is not always the same. Now let's say, for example, you took the same middle-of-the-road approach and went for a couple of the psychopathic responses. You know, mass destruction is the biggest thrill of all. You'll resort to extreme measures at the drop of a hat, etc. Now what happens?
Thank you, sir.
Commander, we have received a message.
I'm sorry, Captain. Your latest test results indicate that you have unreliable reactions. You're not suitable for the position I've assigned you. You are relieved of your command.
So we get unceremoniously escorted off in a shuttle, we leave the Terminator, our part in the story is over, and it's a game failure condition. Now there appears to be a point system at work with that test, because you can pass and still say things like the mass destruction line, so long as you've got some positives to balance it out. I.e. things like, no, I'm always confident in relationships, I never let my emotions get the better of me. Any type of pressure situation, I'm still logical all the time. But enough negatives without enough positives to balance them out, and you fail. Another day, another planetary structure to learn about, but first we need to do a bit of a strategic shift in terms of what planets we're going to prioritize for investment. Up until now, it's been simply based on population. Higher population, more taxpayers, that means more bang for the buck. And that was Achilles until the Garthog invaded, then it became Sand Sterling. But if we look at the details here, 9,500 and change people, almost 4,300 tax income. Naxos has fewer people, but is actually getting quite a bit more in taxes, because they have a higher tax rate now due to the park being in place. So now we're going to want to shift in that direction. Even though there's fewer people, they're going to be our cash cow, as it were. We want to take a look at the police station. There is some misleading things going on here. 26,000 cost, 27,000 and change in the treasury. That's a pretty good match. We could completely ignore this production 50,000 population line. I think it's trying to tell us that you need one of those by the time you hit that population level, but those numbers are quite often not exact in the game, to put it mildly. And also, we're actually going to want more of that because we're going to use it for a completely different purpose. So down here at the bottom, police stations are demanded by the colonists on sufficiently populated worlds to reduce crime to acceptable levels. And so again, the game is telling us a very logical thing here, that like many other city builder games, police stations are there to reduce crime, keep things under control, keep things in order, and you need a minimum amount of them per population. There's no indication here of what the primary purpose of them actually is in the game, and that is to boost your economy. Namely, by catching tax evaders, or dissuading tax evaders, is probably more accurate. The tax morale here will not go much higher than 60%. Until you get police stations, you can get it up to the upper 80s minimum, sometimes into the 90s. And that's definitely what our goal is. If you can imagine, if we had 90% tax morale here, that would be over 2,000 additional income per day just from that. So that's our goal. And in order to make that happen, we need to build police stations because they will boost that. We're going to need more than one, but we'll start with one. So we're going to throw this one up, and I'm going to just sort of square this off over here. And that knocks our treasury down to almost nothing, and we'll move forward with our day.
Message on the bridge.
A ship smuggling Protean powder will arrive in 24 hours. This is dangerous stuff, so you must secure the entire planet. If the smuggler gets on the planet, you must contain him. We'll come and get him.
Okay, so the smuggler's going to arrive in 24 hours, they say. We need to secure the entire planet. So we're probably going to want to zoom in and take a closer look. And you can see that the planet is, flashing with these red brackets. So let's see what happens here. For purposes of comparison with what we're about to see in the rest of this mission on Sand Sterling, this is what happens if you attack a normal trader. You get this dialogue. Basically, you want them to identify themselves. Okay, they say that they're Hull 4, and it looks like it's one of the ones that we fought the pirates off from recently, so we recently rescued this ship. We can just tell them to go through, or you can do this sort of cheeky, we're going to extort you. And obviously, we don't want to blow these things up because we've seen how the Colonel reacts to that. Hint, it's not good. I don't believe you, pay or pray. Yeah. And then we would attack them, and that would be bad. We're just going to let them go. And they will sail on away from the encounter, and that is that. You can do this as many times as you want, but there's no in-game point to it. So later on the 30th, take a look at this mini-map. We've got, again, the red around Sand Sterling. And if we go back in, still there. Let's try it again. It's gone. There's some sort of bug with that display. Not that important because you're going to be looking from the star map most of the time. I just thought it was worth noting. So if we move along here, there we go. We've got a trader approaching with the red brackets. So this would indicate that it's a mission critical vessel. Let's attack it. They did say secure the entire planet. And we can see how this compares to the previous conversation. No small talk, no, hey, where are you headed, HAL 4, whatever. How's your route going today? No, we are just saying you must turn around. We are the interplanetary police. Cargo will spoil if it's not in refrigeration soon. Oh yeah, what are you carrying? Milk to the Maidon chain of stores. I have no insurance and will lose a lot of money. Clearly this would not fool us, okay? And why we call ourselves the interplanetary police, I don't know. But we're going to say, you know what, we'll just check your cargo. And as it turns out, this doesn't really matter. You don't even need to do this. It appears to be a legacy holdover from an earlier point in development. And we'll see why I think that more later on in the captain's rank. But as it turns out, the game is going to explicitly tell you when the smuggler shows up. So all we have to do basically is sit here and wait with our fleet, and that's it for the time being. Just let the traders come and go, even though it looks like they're being flagged. So, alright, let's take a look now. It took almost a full day for the police station to get built on Naxos. And they take a bit to have an impact. So we can see that's all operational. Yes, 50,000 population, that's full of nonsense. We don't actually have much improvement here, maybe a slight bit of impact from that. Another day or two, we're going to see a much bigger impact. But more importantly, look at our cash. Now, we don't have quite enough. A few more thousand to get another police station. But is there something else maybe we need? Let's take a look at how we're doing on the population growth front. We haven't looked at that in a while. Still very strong on Centronome and Achilles. Not quite maxed, but close. And then we have 68 here. That's a living space issue. 66, a bigger living space issue. And this is starting to get close now as well on the hospital front. And none of those are severe problems yet. You know, as I've said, I don't mind letting it go down to about 60. But I do want to deal with the housing on Sand Sterling at this stage, because we don't have enough money for the police station anyway. We can do this and still have enough money for one tomorrow. I think it's worth the investment. So if we hop in here, I want to really take a look at our housing now, because we've been doing prefab housing for purposes of price all the way along. But now I want to upgrade. And let's just take a look at the different options. So if we actually went to build this, notice the footprint here is 5 by 6. And if you sort of, as a baseline amount, I'm going to, for purposes of comparing them, I'm going to consider that the edge ones, which are basically, the streets that you see here, let's say that they're shared between buildings, just for the purposes of doing a bit of math. So 5 by 6. And then we've got 5,600, 850 energy. The workers don't matter. And then it produces housing for 7,000 population. The apartment block, that's our in-between one. So it costs over twice as much. Use more energy, but it produces also more than twice the housing. And it's actually the exact same 5 by 6 footprint. So the way that works out is you get a little bit more than twice the use of the space, twice as many people in the same amount of space. The cost is actually the same per person. And then for energy, it's about 50% better. So it's definitely an upgrade. Then let's go to the third one, Arcology. Now it's not that much more expensive than the apartment block, 16,000, 1,500 energy, 30,000 population. So twice that much. And if we go ahead and try to put one of these on the map, now it's 6 by 5 instead of 5 by 6. That is, it requires the same amount of space, just in a different arrangement. It's oriented differently. But this is the best in all categories. It gives you more than 3 times the population density that the prefab housing does. It gives you a 50% better value in terms of the cost that you have to pay for the building per population. And then on the energy front, it also gives you more than twice the bonus that the apartment block did. It's 140% boost over the prefab. So basically, there is no reason ever to build the apartment blocks. I'm not sure why they're in the game, because this is best at everything. If you have the money and want to build this, if you're looking for something cheap, you're building prefab, and that's pretty much the end of the story. So we're going to build an Arcology here, but I think it would have been a lot more interesting if, for example, the apartment block was cheaper, but the Arcology was better for density or something in that area. So if there was more variation between them, but as it is, no reason to ever build an apartment block. And this is a pretty good location. It's not perfect, but it gives us that, can't move in any direction or we'll run into something deal. It's a pretty good use of that terrain. And then going forward after this, now what we're going to do is tear down the prefabricated housing. We won't need it anymore. We'll get some money out of it. Now, there is a debate to be had whether this is the right move. Because what we're going to see is when we blow these up, we're going to see most of the colonies anyway will have a significant population growth dip. It's like you're forcibly relocating the colonists, and they're not really happy with that. Now, I could say, okay, well, I'll just be willing to eat the loss of space efficiency on this planet, and maybe the loss of a bit of energy, which should be more space efficiency because you have to build more power plants to an extent later on, whatever, and just get these up as soon as possible. Leave the initial prefab housing in place. But this is the route I'm going with, and I think it's better. The other thing is, if you're going to do this, you want to do it soon as you can. So going forward, we will not be building any housing that is not Arcology, and they'll just be tearing down all the prefabs. Our housing transition is complete in Sand Sterling. Over 10,000 people there now. It did bottom out at 64 for the growth, back up to 65. That would be in the 70s without the relocation penalty, but that's about as good as we can hope for right now. And then over on Naxos, you can see that the police station having its effect, up to 75% tax morale. So really bringing in some nice money there at the moment. And you would think, okay, we're going to build another police station like I said, but I'm actually second guessing myself and I'm going to switch it around. You really want to be flexible with this if you want to maximize your colonies. And now, housing would be nice on Naxos, but what would be more than nice is getting this hospital situation on New Caroline dealt with. Down to 65. That's definitely going to be in the low 60s if we wait another day before we start building it, because it would take almost 2 full days from now, almost a full day to get the hospital built. Wouldn't be starting it till tomorrow morning. I don't want to deal with that. And by the way, I meant to mention this earlier, but We're on September 2nd. There was no August 31st. Last I checked, there was one on the map, or on the calendar, but not in Imperium Galactica. So that's an interesting thing. Anyway, we're going to build the hospital right over here. Just so it's barely out of the edge of all of this stuff. And from a power point of view, that's another 900, down to 5,400 kilowatt hours required. That's a big gap from what we have. But I actually did some experimenting with this. It really doesn't matter, other than potentially a very, very small morale hit. It's nowhere near the cost that would be required if we were going to, say, just build a whole new power plant. As long as you don't go below half. If you have half the power for what you need, then you're good. If it goes below half, it's like Achilles at the beginning of the game and buildings start shutting down. We don't want that. So we're going to go ahead and really stretch that and abuse those mechanics. And then going to take a look at the Arcology here for Naxos. Because since we don't have enough money for the police station after we build the hospital, we might as well deal with both of these problems at once. And for this Arcology, we're going to slide it right up over here. There we go. Just having trouble getting into the right place. And now let's advance and see what's in store for us. Okay. So I'm definitely going to want to do, of course, the usual tax adjustments. You're fine. You were up for a bit. Need to knock you back down. Good. Good. Okay. So then, the Arcology only takes 8 hours and change to build. So it'll be up for plenty of time for the next cycle, which means I can get rid of these now. And let's just watch what this population growth does, because right now it's at 66. So by all rights, it would bump up without the relocation penalty once we hit our next time cycle. And what does it do? It goes down, again to 64. Okay, so it's going to sit at that same spot and probably then pop up eventually. Let's see. We're looking good everywhere else. Oh, we actually do want to bump these up a bit. Very nicely done. What else do we have?
Suddenly, I was disoriented. It was as if I was in a dream. I saw a room which seemed frighteningly familiar.
Some sort of vision. What's going on with Dante? What we want to do now is just visit the bar. And this is our first opportunity for a conversation.
Hello, Doctor. I was wondering, do you have time for a few questions? If you're not too busy, I mean.
Of course I can. Just tell me what you need.
Let's lead off with the safer option.
I just wanted to see if you had a chance yet to compile the results of the test I completed for you.
It's my job to examine all the crew during space flights. Some people get claustrophobic when confined in a small space. They can react in a number of ways. Some go crazy while others get depressed, but either way I try to watch for telltale signs so nothing really happens.
I don't think I'm going crazy, but I do have a few strange dreams. In fact, there's this room that keeps reappearing in all my dreams. I think I've seen this room when I'm conscious, too. What do you make of that?
According to modern science, dreams come from the subconscious, but most of the time it's difficult to tell what causes them. Here we are in the 24th century, and I can't believe we still can't seem to get a grasp on a dream's true meaning.
Well, thanks for trying. Well, I've got to go.
So there's a couple things that really stand out about this conversation. Dr. Reinhardt is pleasant enough, but she didn't answer the question at all about his test results. Just talking about, oh, I'm keeping an eye on everybody. Yeah, but what about the results? Have you compiled them? How were they? Doesn't answer that. And then she talks about the 24th century. Here we are in the 24th century. It's the 34th century. So something is definitely off here for sure. And somebody also pointed out after one of the recent videos that the diagram for the ship is actually off. Like, it shows the connections to some of the rooms on the opposite side from where they should be. So that's also a thing. We're getting increasing signs here that, one, we got something going on with Dante. You know, what's going on with these visions? He doesn't think he's going crazy, but there's something there. Obviously, these dreams are, you know, these going to become a mental issue for him. And then we have details from characters and in the ship and that don't match. So can we trust what they're telling us about the universe? It's very confusing. Now, going forward from here, we're definitely going to need to deal with the rest of this smuggling issue on Sand Sterling. When it eventually shows up, obviously we're going to continue to boost our population growth buildings in between that, so all of that's going to go on. But I think this is a good point to cut off given the length of this. And I'll be back soon with more of Dante's adventure as a captain. Thanks for watching, everybody.